Okay, we have the carburetor removed from the pet array and we're going to start working on it now. But so far, looks really nice and clean inside. Butterfly's nice and shiny. Internally, she looks to be pretty good. We're also draining the oil out of the engine at the moment, which is just about finished. Which isn't as clean as it looked on the dipstick, so I don't think we're going to reuse that oil in this engine. We'll probably just use that oil up in the scrap Suffolk and little air-cooled engines that aren't going to be running for as long a length of time as this probably will, it shows. So we'll have to put some fresh oil in that. We've also removed the tags from the cowling. They're both turned out to be nice brass tags which have shined up quite well. Anyway, we're going to concentrate on this carburetor now. See if we can split the two halves. We'll see. Okay, we've got the Air A carburetor as disassembled as it's going to be. So we've got the top half of the carburetor. We've taken off the throttle assembly there, but we're not going to take the shaft out. And the shaft is pretty good. That's the least wear I've ever had on one of these types of carbs. The bottom of the carburetor, again, that's as far apart as it's going to come. I've taken the lever off for the choke because it is bent and needs to be straightened, and I will paint that as well. But everything else is out of it. The float chamber is pretty disgusting. And all the bits of the carburetor are in this tub here, minus the float, which seems to be in good condition. We'll test that in a little while, see if it sinks, and we'll see if it floats. We've even managed to save the original gasket. No breaks, no tears. We'll clean that up and reuse that because I didn't get one of those in my new gasket set. So yeah, this is as far as we're going to take the carburetor apart now, and we're just going to start cleaning it up. Okay, we've drained all the oil out of the pear. It's now got dark. It is about 6:30. So lighting is a bit piss poor in here, so we're not going to do much video. But we're going to take the sump off now. I'm pretty sure I've got to take off the big bolts first and then the smaller bolts. I think that's how it's done, if I remember rightly. It's all a bit of an experiment. And then we're going to have to find some way of getting the sump off without lifting the engine up. So this should be interesting. We'll give it. Well, I've got the sump on the bench here. Came off relatively easy. All it's held on by is 4 big bolts, and then you got 5 of these little ones. Don't forget the one in the middle. I did. So I was like, oh man, there's some paint coming off at all. And then I noticed the extra bolt. Oh well. But yeah, the sump's in pretty good nick, and relatively clean inside. Yeah, not bad at all. A lot of crud around the front of the sump, which has all been scraped away. It's just various bits of everything really that you could possibly think of. Some mud, dirt, bits of old spider cobwebs, all sorts of crud. But even that didn't manage to save any original paint. There is literally just a few specks of original paint. Originally it seemed to be green, so we've gone with mid-bronzer green. Okay, we're just about to remove the barrel from the pet array. Got all the bolts off, even the ones over here we managed to get off without doing any damage to the cowling, so that's pretty good. So we're going to slide it off now. Hopefully it's going to come off a bit more easy. There we have it. Good opportunity to have a good old look at the barrel. Yeah, it's pretty nasty scoring on that piston. pretty harsh, that. Wasn't expecting to find that much scoring. Oh god, it's even worse on this side. Lame. Got a big old spacer on the engine. Looks like she might have once been a petrol paraffin engine. Oh yeah, blimey. Big old spacer. Just like Make Do and Mend what I had on one of his engines, which did affect the compression, so we're not going to be putting that back on. We'll be putting a little gasket. But there are some nasty scores in that piston. Okay, we got the Petera's barrel on the workbench, and as you can see the valves are out. It's a really nice straightforward job. So we got the inlet valve and the exhaust valve in separate bags, both marked so we don't get them around the wrong way. So yeah, they're really easy to get out on these engines because they're nice and big. Use a side valve spring compressor, and literally it takes a minute a valve. The only thing you can run into is if the actual end of the valve stem is slightly mushroomed by the lifter, or somebody bashed it or done something with it, then they can get just caught in the valve guide. If that does happen, just tap it back in and just gently file the burr that's there, and then it should come out. But anyway, we had no problems with getting those valves out, and it's actually the first time I've ever had a Petera barrel off. I've had the valves out of my A1 that I used to have, and that was just as easy. But obviously the reason why it had no compression at first when Make Do and Mend one first picked it up was the exhaust valve was stuck open, and managed to get that freed off fairly easily just through the spark plug hole. But of course the time of being open was completely rusted out the actual exhaust valve seat. But on the guide the valve seat is fairly good, but on the barrel itself the valve seat's going to need a fair bit of lapping in. But the intake valve has been shut all those years and has survived fairly well. But then again, the bigger engines, just love working on the bigger stationary engines these days, because all the bigger valves have the slots in them for screwdrivers, eliminating that annoying little tiny suction cup completely, which makes for a much easier job. Anyway, we're gonna sort out the actual valve chest cover here. We're gonna take the breather assembly apart and give that a good clean out, make sure that's working, because obviously that varies the crankcase pressure, but from what I can hear it's actually working already. But we'll take that apart and put it in the box, and then this will be ready to be painted. We are going to paint the engine, decided to do that now. There's just no original paint left on it at all. The only paint I can find on it is some red undercoat that Petera used, and everything else is literally gone. So we're going to paint it BMC, I think they call it a Mowog or something like that, Mowog green, just call it BMC green. It's a Craftmasters paint that I'm ordering again. Had pretty good success with them, and the company isn't that far away from me anyway, so generally find that the postage comes quite quick. At first I ordered mid-Brunswick green, which would have looked alright, but I saw some other pictures of engines painted in the BMC green. Make Do and Mend one has painted a couple of his Peteras in the BMC green as well, and that generally looks like a really nice green. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get a tin of brush on heat resistant matte black this time, not the spray can. We're going to try some brush on one for the barrel and the exhaust, and then the cowling is probably going to be painted black. It is fairly pitted, so a nice couple of coats of thick black on that should look alright. and then every bit of brass is going to be shined up. Yeah, she's going to look alright, I should think. Time will tell to see what she runs like though. We have got some scoring on the actual barrel. Probably just about see that, but the actual piston is quite bad, so I don't know. We'll take the rings off and see what they're like in the bore. Worst we can do is we might have to get another piston for it. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we finally come to that. But first of all, we're going to clean up this valve chest cover, and then we'll scrape out the fins of this old barrel. Okay, well, we cleaned up the valve chest cover. Absolutely no paint on it at all. It was just covered in filth. I don't know, there was absolutely no paint on that whatsoever. But anyway, the breather's all cleaned out now, looking pretty good. So that should get a coat of paint. Yeah, not bad. Starting to lose the light now for decent videoing. So I think we're just going to decarbonise the barrel here, clean out the exhaust and inlet port, and then we'll think about calling it a night, I think.